Thank you for staying with us. Now, in our first story, former Attorney General Ayikwe Otu has taken on the National Security Minister, Albert Kandapah, over his comments that the ruling in favor of the government will always make people see the judiciary as biased. Now, speaking at a sensitization workshop for members of the superior courts, Mr. Kandapah warned that when judges are perceived to be partial, it will have national security implications as people will take or want to take the law into their own hands. We'll hear from Ayikwe Otu shortly, but listen to the comments by the National Security Minister, Albert Kandapah, which is stoking controversy.
Injustice occasioned as a result of the absence of an effective justice delivery system, or delayed justice, or biased justice, is certainly a threat to national security. And indeed, when injustice abounds, particularly in situations where the bench, which is considered as the final arbiter of disputes, is deemed to be biased, citizens tend to take the law into their own hands, most times without recourse to the established systems of justice delivery. And similarly, the failure of the criminal justice system to ensure effective and expeditious trial of criminals adversely impact the morale of law enforcement agencies. It also emboldens criminals to perpetrate more crime and breeds lawlessness among the citizenry, developments which threaten the internal security of the state. If you are going to be able to address the security challenges that we have, especially the domestic ones, we need to be able to ensure that there is a judicial system that works. If we do not have a system, a judicial system that works, many people will simply take the laws into their own hands and misbehave and do what they want. Therefore, in trying to manage the security situation, it is important for us that we do get a judicial system that works. And we are all lucky that in the sub-region, we are perceived as a country where the judicial system works and where you could expect justice. If the interpretation of the law is tilted so much in our favor all the time, people will start accusing the judiciary and will not have the confidence that they need.
On the Super Morning Show on Monday, Mr. Ayikwe Otu said Kandapah should have sought legal advice before making such comments, and that there was nothing wrong for judges to rule the same way so long as they had a basis in the law.
On Kandapah, I'm sorry to say that I don't think that he sought legal advice. The judges are taking an oath to do justice to all manner of persons without fear or favor, ill will or affection. Are you saying that when somebody brings a case which is bad, the Supreme Court must give an interpretation to favor that person merely because every time ruling for you will make people feel that there's something wrong? So don't send the cases to court. Why do they check themselves before they go? Because clearly you know what they're going to file, you are going to lose. Then why do you go in the first place? Then you expect the Supreme Court to be playing politics, to say that, oh, I've given 5 NPP, I've given 5 rulings in favor of NPP, so this one I'm going to give a ruling in favor of NDC. It doesn't work that way. Either you have a case or you don't have a case. That is my view of the matter.
Well, there's another disagreement. Security analyst Professor Kwesi Enning disagrees with Mr. Ayikwe Otu. He argues that there is nothing wrong with the comments made by the National Security Minister.
First, that the minister shows true maturity and understanding of the complexities of what insecurities are, or what types of seemingly innocuous, innocent activities can create insecurity. That is one. Now, Number two, the minister's concerns about the role of the judiciary and the perceived independence plus neutrality of their work, I think must be located within the National Security Strategy document that was launched probably a little over a year ago. Now, what the minister seeks to do is to raise an early warning cautionary note about the role of the judiciary, their performance over time, and how that performance feeds into and can create particular perceptions of that critical role that the judiciary plays. All judiciaries are the last stop for mediating tensions and a sense of injustice within societies. And as the last bastion where people can run to and seek a fair assessment of what they may perceive to be injustices or wrongs done against either individuals or groups, and it is more often than not an almost knife's edge relationship amongst all these, contesting parties. And particularly, it is the ability of the judiciary to negotiate these contested territories in a manner that its words and actions are deemed to be fair, objective, neutral, becomes very critical, particularly in seemingly fragile societies.
Now, the Minister for Sanitation and Water Resources is urging private sector developers to take advantage of the huge waste resource to shore up the production of fertilizers in the country. Speaking on government's management of water and sanitation, Cecilia Abena-Dapaah said the move would go a long way to keep the country clean while providing jobs and boosting agriculture. Samuel Mbura now reports.
Ghana is estimated to have over 53.2 billion cubic meters of surface water, but only 14% has been utilized and the rest has been destroyed. Minister for Sanitation and Water Resources Cecilia Abena-Dapaah is worried about its continuous destruction.
We have a serious issue at Daboase, Sechere-Hemang, Odaso, and Wa. People have started even winning sand from the White and Black Volta rivers. If we do not stop this, very soon, that one is for sure, we will not have water to drink. God has given us 53.2 billion cubic meters of surface water. But what are we doing with the water? We are saying we are using only 14%. The rest is being destroyed.
She has, however, highlighted measures government has implemented to safeguard and enhance water resource management across the country.
If we are borrowing close to $1 billion to do projects, and the raw water sources are contaminated, polluted, and the machines will be drawing in mud, where are we going, and what do we want to do with our water bodies? People have the audacity to divert the Pra, the Ankobra, the Brim, just because they want money for themselves. Greed, inordinate greed, and that must stop. We are trying to put the rivers back to their normal places. But please, I'm pleading seriously with those who do that to stop.
Ghana is the focal point in the report from the World Water Forum in the whole of West Africa to implement a groundwater project, a reason efforts must be made to safeguard the environment. But the huge production of waste is a major challenge. Cecilia Abena-Dapaah is calling on the private sector to take advantage of the huge potential in fertilizer production the situation presents.
Ghana's waste, I must say, according to the technical report I have, is 65% organic. We produce 7.1 million tons of waste per year. So it's on us. And I will state here again that the private sector can take advantage of this and do what ESPA members, the Environmental Service Providers Association, some of them are into compost production. And like I said, if you bury organic waste in your house for 3 months, you get...
Samuel Imbura's report for JoyNews, Accra.
Well, now in the Ashanti region, President of the Christian Service University College, Professor Samuel Afrani, is asking government to review its flagship program, Free Senior High School Policy. His call follows some challenges denting the effective implementation of the policy. Abdul Latif Awal has more in this report.
President of the Christian Service University College, Professor Samuel Afrani, says it is high time the free senior high school policy was reviewed to reduce its burden on the economy. He says the government should find ways of ensuring the policy is effective but at a lower impact on the economy. Professor Afrani also says the free senior high school policy should target raising high-quality students. He was speaking at the 45th graduation ceremony at the Christian Service University College in Kumasi.
I would like to congratulate the government of Ghana once again for the introduction of the free SHS program. That was really a bold initiative. You agree with me? It has given Ghanaian children access to secondary education. Through this program, every family in the country would benefit from the wealth of the nation. However, in recent times, a number of eminent statesmen and renowned academicians have called on the government for a review of the program in order to improve the cost management as well as the quality of the program. I add my voice to this call and appeal so that the review process will not only ensure that the cost of the free SHS education is manageable to the nation, but that it will also produce high-quality students who will feed the tertiary institutions in Ghana and invariably the job markets.
A lecturer at the University of Cape Coast, Professor Joseph Mbawuni, observed the introduction of the electronic levy would not achieve much if corruption and abuse of power are not checked. He advised the Ghanaian youth to adopt the attitude of integrity and transparency.
The reason why we are struggling in Ghana, one of the reasons why we are struggling in Ghana, is not because we don't have money. We get the money, we raise the funds. The e-levy is coming with millions and billions of cedis we are going to raise. But if corruption is not curtailed, we will run back to the same problem again. Corruption will help us save a lot and therefore will increase development in this country.
Abdul Latif Awal's report read to you.
Let's talk a bit of health now. Now, the Enidaso Parkinson's Disease Foundation Ghana wants government to put Parkinson's disease medications on the National Health Insurance Scheme. Director Dr. Vida Obise believes it will relieve the burden of the elderly who are already burdened with other diseases. She was speaking at a forum as part of activities to mark World Parkinson's Day.
Dr. Obese observes Ghana's growing aging population requires attention to diseases such as Parkinson's disease. The foundation also launched the book Understanding Parkinson's Disease, an introductory guide by Parkinson's Africa and IPDGC Africa. The move is part of the foundation's health literacy drive. Dr. Obese appeals for funding for the initiative.
Ghana is now an aging population. Our demographic is moving towards the aging population, so we are seeing a lot of neurodegenerative diseases such as Parkinson's disease, and so we need to understand diseases such as Parkinson's disease, and we need to ensure that there are medications such as levodopa is put on the National Health Insurance Scheme, because the population of patients who have this disease are above 60s. And these patients are already saddled with hypertension, diabetes, and other diseases. And for them to add on their medication for Parkinson's disease is very difficult for them. So as a foundation, we are advocating that their medication be put on a National Health Insurance Scheme, and stakeholders pay attention to these patients and ensure that our health literacy drive, such as this booklet and others in the community, are funded so that more.
Though he underscored the importance of spiritual intervention, Anglican Bishop of Kumasi, Right Reverend Oscar Christian Amwa, appealed to prayer camps to allow members to seek medical attention as well.
In fact, even World Health Organization now understand that when you're talking of health, the spiritual part is also there. You see? So I will talk about those in prayer camps who would camp patients without allowing them even go for medication or for treatment at the hospitals. That is very dangerous. So even when they are there, supposedly, they can also be seeking support at the hospital so that together their health will be restored or well managed.
April 11 every year is designated as World Parkinson's Day. The theme for this year's celebration is Parkinson's is. Professor Fred Stephen Sappho is a neurologist at the Konfanochi Teaching Hospital.
This year, the emphasis is on creating more awareness about Parkinson's disease. So if somebody in a community has Parkinson's disease, for instance, how the person know that this is Parkinson's disease? Number one, if you realize that the way you walk has become a bit slow. Number two, if you feel that your muscles have become a bit stiff or rigid. If you see that the hands begin to shake at rest. These are some of the things that you should look out for and then come to the hospital.
And on that note, we wrap the AM News. Up next, the News Review. Do stay. Thank you for staying with us. Time now for the News Review. We're joined by media consultant Liz Hayfron-Asari. Good morning, Liz.
Good morning.
I see you there. I see you. Hope you're well.
I'm fine, thank you. And you?
I'm well. I'm in there. Anyway, before we get into the papers, a few thoughts I'd like to run by you. I'm sure you've heard about the Akachi incident where some youth were gunned down, two of them in some sort of altercation with the police. Okay, so it has to do with allegations of police brutality, and this apparently is the third such instance within a period of 6 months. Now, to cut a long story short, there had been some snatching of someone's bag by some people on a motorbike some days before. Now, the police spots 3 people on a motorbike, and the assumption is that these could be the people. But these are just youth. In fact, they were saying that there was a guy on a motorbike. He was going home, met 2 of his friends, and said, "Hey, join me." Now, the police van allegedly, rams them against the barricades on the street, and then, some altercations continue. And in fact, we have 2 people who have now lost their lives. And Akachi has been in a state of uproar. Of course, the people can't trust the police there to, investigate themselves. So people have been speaking about they're having to petition the IGP and for the RegSec to step in and all of that. But your quick take on some of these, actions. The police is clothed with the force of the state, but sometimes they get it wrong. And I'm not saying in this instance because there's no evidence yet, but 2 youth have died. Quick reaction?
The police are law enforcers. They're to make sure that there's law and order wherever they are or wherever they've been sent to police. And I think that they should be friends of citizens and not foes. They're not there to fight the community. in your narration, I didn't hear you talk about the police trying to stop those on the motorbike and they probably did not stop. Or I didn't hear you talk about them trying to question the young men and they did not give them any response. So just outright shooting on suspicion, I think it's not the way to go. I think that the IGP should act quickly towards this.
So Liz, just to clarify, I believe from what we've heard, the police says, they tried to alert them, but per the reports we get, the youth weren't even aware the police was trying to signal them in any way. So different accounts being brought in. The question is, you don't know whom to believe, but those from the youth front who later, and on a sad note, later some of the youth attacked the Akachi police station, as a sort of reprisal because they felt this was going on. It was one time too many, but that is the kind of story. It's a bit patchy and you don't know who exactly is telling 100% of the truth or even some percentage of the truth.
Yes, but again, the police should be professional. I mean, if you try to stop them and they do not stop, it's shooting them the other resort. Isn't there another way by which you can apprehend them without having to kill anybody? I believe that the police are professional. If they want to apprehend you, if they want to arrest you, they know how they can go about it. They probably might not get you there and then, but they know that they can apprehend you, and they can apprehend you without killing you, without shooting at you.
Well, very, very valid point indeed. Very valid point. And it's sad that in all of these instances, people keep losing their lives. But another quick one right before we get into the Daily Graphic. I don't know whether you monitored the news right before we came on. So National Security Minister Albert Kandapar has been saying that when it comes to the justicial system, judges shouldn't toe a certain line all the time, because if rulings always, my apologies, if rulings always are slanted, so to speak, for lack of a better word, toward his party, the NPP, then people will lack confidence in the judiciary because they will think it's a bit of a, and these are my words, a rubber stamp. Now, people have taken him on saying, hey, but if the cases lean in a certain direction and if basically others don't have a case, you would want the judges to rule in the right manner. It is the law that must be followed. There are others who have also come in, like Professor Kwesi Enning, who have said that no, there is actually a lot of reason in what the National Security Minister is saying. From where you sit, looking at the balance of power between the three organs of government, what it should be, and looking at our own political dynamics, what is your thinking on this?
I think that, like I have always said, we should have three independent arms of government. We should have the executive, we should have the judiciary, and we should have the legislature. And they should not be beholden to each other. I mean, they should be independent. And I know the judiciary over the years have tried to rule without fear or favor. But in coming years or in past years, we have seen that they tend to pay homage, if I should say so, to those who have put them in the position that they are in. And like the National Security Coordinator is saying, if they seem to be leaning towards one direction all the time, people are bound to read into whatever judgments are being given, especially when we realize that with the rulings, there's no dissent. Everybody seems to agree and go one way. And then you question, isn't there a devil's advocate in there somewhere who sees differently? Do they all see the same way? I believe that the judiciary that we have today is what we have made it. We have tried to couch the judiciary in a way that seems right to us as a government, as a people. And therefore, we're getting back what we have put into it. Everybody seems to want to color one person or another. If you do not speak in favor of somebody, if you say something against somebody, if you criticize somebody constructively, you're given a color. And that is not the way we should go. I believe that the judiciary should be able to stand up and clear its image, give the people an image that they want to see of a judiciary that is fair, that is free, that is working without favoring anybody, that is firm. That is what we want to see, and I think that that is what the judiciary should make of itself. We need a judiciary that is strong, that can really uphold justice, and it behoves on them to be truthful and honest. If they're truthful and honest and loyal to citizens, nobody will want to paint them.
Do you feel we have that sort of judiciary now? That which you describe as being all of those, nice things, honest and, playing above the board?
I won't put my neck out and say that we have that now. But I know that there are some independent judges in the judiciary, in the Superior Court of Judicature, that I will stand up for, because they would stand up for what is true and what is honest and what is just. Right. But as a whole, I won't put my neck on the line for that.
Right. Liz, thank you for sharing your thoughts. Let's get into the papers now, starting with the Daily Graphic. 100,000 youth targeted over 5 years. What's that about? Let's give you the details. And the Vice President, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, yesterday launched the National Youth Volunteers Program, NYVP, in Kumasi with a call on Ghanaian youth to, quote, chart a new course of action for our country and various communities. Now, he said the program provided all Ghanaians with the opportunity to contribute their quota irrespective of their educational level, political affiliation, and ethnicity to the development of the country. The program, which will have 13 different modules, is expected to engage 100,000 youth over the next 5 years. Now, the NYVP is an initiative of the National Youth Authority under the Ministry of Youth and Sports. And Dr. Bawumia explained that the objective of the program was to establish a vibrant culture of volunteerism as a means of rekindling the flames of patriotism, propriety, discipline, and civic responsibility within the youth by providing a coordinated framework for streamlining volunteerism activities. You can get more details from the Daily Graphic newspaper, from the headlines, and of course, all the way to page 3. Liz, to be honest with you, my bit is, when I hear of these, they are so good, but at the same time, I think about continuity, I think about sustainability, and I think about the fact that we have programs, projects. So this is slightly different in terms of volunteering and all of that. It's expected to engage over 100,000 youth over the next 5 years. But sometimes I ask myself, so how about the programs from the past? How could we have fed this into maybe a NAPCO idea? How could we have fed this into other youth endeavors? Do you get it? We're always, it appears, trying to start something new when there are old things we've not even got right. My thinking. What's yours?
I agree with you. And I think that volunteerism in Ghana has been dead for quite some time now. And so I would like to see the details of what he means when he talks about the youth volunteering. What are they volunteering? What they have studied? Are we looking at the unemployed? If you're looking at the unemployed, then they are looking to earning a living for themselves. I don't think that they're looking to volunteering. We still have the Red Cross around. We still have the guides. We still have the scouts. And in our youthful days, it was an honor and a pleasure for us to belong to these societies and to go out and do things for free. But today, the youth of today don't know how to volunteer. Get stuck in traffic or have a problem with your car and get some people to push you and let your car start. They want you to give them something for that. So exactly what are we looking at? And if you're talking about the youth, 100,000, if you're looking at unemployment, isn't that a drop in the ocean? What are the numbers when it comes to unemployment? And then how do you get the 100,000 youth that you're targeting? And over 5 years, are you targeting 100,000 a year, or targeting 100,000 over 5 years. If it's 100,000 over 5 years, isn't it woefully inadequate? What would the others be doing?
So very valid point you make there. And of course, volunteerism in your day is definitely not what it is now. I mean, some youth will tell you bluntly that owing to the political debacles we have had time and again, they don't want to sacrifice anything. That is why I feel patriotism has had such a hard dent, because people feel the goods have not been delivered. In the Nkrumah era, where you had people literally benefiting from free food in school, free education, some of them went to Russia, to Germany and other places in the East. That was when Nkrumah showed some signs of leaning, though he said he was part of the non-aligned movement. But there were these benefits, and you would see that people would come back and be willing to serve. Nowadays, you look at the scholarship schemes that we have, for example, and even those who merit them. I mean, it is very blunt. People will tell you can score a 4.0. If you are not connected in certain ways, you will not arrive at this point. You will do this. So people feel, why should I sacrifice? But on the other hand, I feel it's not a lost cause. Mother Ghana remains ours, and we cannot give up on her because she has not given up on us. So we must continue, like at least the target is the youth, the young ones. Hopefully we can have a change in mindset, a paradigm shift to sort of reorient people and foster that love again for our country so we can give off our best. There's two brothers.
That will happen if, like you're talking about scholarships, you don't see those who are privileged children getting the scholarship as against those who have merited it by hard work. And we have a lot of needy and brainy children who I sit back and wonder, why don't they get scholarships? Why don't they apply for scholarships? They'll tell you, madam, if you don't know somebody, nobody will mind you. Your letter will just go and lie there, like you said. And if we don't change that, then you definitely won't get the youth to volunteer anything, because they think that it is against them. Those whose children are privileged are the ones who are getting all the benefits, and they who are down there are being asked to volunteer. So we need to work at it.
Let's do a few more stories. Two brothers, one other drowned in abandoned pit. This is a sad one, Liz. It's on page 16. And 3 boys aged between 7 and 9 have drowned in a pit at Tuba in the South municipality in the Greater Accra region. They are Isaac Among, 8, and siblings Elisha Kakra Eduno are 9, and Samuel Teria Ejamens are 6. The children had left home to play around Mountain View at Tuba last Saturday morning and decided to wash down in a pit created by rainwater from a ridge. The topsoil at the area had been removed as a result of illegal sand and gravel winning activities. Unknown to the children, a mudslide had created the pit, making the base muddy, a development which made it difficult for them to swim out of the stagnant water in the pit. It beats me. It beats me that the sort of avoidable deaths we have in this country, from the most basic illnesses to very preventable incidents. Yesterday we were talking about hanging homes on the Weja-Kaswa stretch and how it's a waiting disaster. Last week I saw in the papers a lot of areas where the same bit about illegal, at least that one was Galamsey, so mining activity, had created a lot of these pits in different communities spanning different regions, Eastern region, Ashanti region and others, and people could easily lose their lives. You could fall into a pit. Here we are, similar situation, but this is on the back of, let me just get, illegal sand and gravel winning activities. When you hear of these, I mean, 3 young people, their lives snuffed out. What's your take?
I cringe because I have always been advocating for our children to go out and play, get a little sunshine. We keep them indoors all the time, behind maybe computers, behind tablets, and that kind of thing. They don't have the kind of youthful experiences we had running around. But again, we the adults have also created dangerous spots because we have been disobedient, because we have done all kinds of illegal things. where they were playing, is it somewhere where sun is supposed to be wind? I mean, you begin to ask questions, and then it's terrifying because 8 and 9 year olds.
And Liz, honestly, if it is, I mean, there should be barricades or something to prevent people, especially children, from having access to such places.
That's what I was coming to, because 8 and 9 year olds would go anywhere if they are not stopped. So I was going to ask the same questions. Were there any barricades to stop the children from running into a sand-winning environment? Is it close to their house? Were they far from home? Again, I keep saying that until the child is old enough to be responsible, to be out on their own, there should be some elderly person who should keep an eye on these children. These children just go running anywhere and everywhere. And if we as parents and if we as community elders do not open our eyes and keep our eyes on them, we'd always end up with such disasters. We have moved away from living as communities to living as individual households. Is that what we want? Does it augur well for the way we were brought up? I mean, if I should step out, and when I was young, if I should step out and misbehave, if my parents got to know, I'll be beaten. But whoever saw me misbehaving would have beaten me already. You know, so you make sure that you behave yourself. Is that what we are teaching our children today? No, our children are just growing up wild, just doing any kind of thing, have no supervision. And for me, it is scary, and it hurts. It hurts when you hear that a child, 8-year-old, 9-year-old, has died an unnecessary death. So sad, and but that is where we find ourselves now. Media must promote peace. That is Afil Moni saying so. And on the back page, WaterAid launches project to sustain wash facilities. Let's quickly get into the Ghanaian Times newspaper. I'll get back to the Daily Graphic on one thing I have spotted. But the Ghanaian Times, Water for All agenda, government invests over $740 million in 8 water supply projects. Now, here's the bit. We've been told time and again by the Ghana Water Company Limited that if we don't get our act right, the turbulence levels of our water bodies and all of that, we may import water, maybe not immediately, but sometime in the future. That has been re-echoed by the Minister for Sanitation and Water Resources as well. Let's quickly get into that story. And the Minister of Sanitation and Water Resources, Ms. Cecilia Abnadapa, has said government has so far invested more than $740 million in 8 water supply projects, which were at various stages of progression. These projects, she said, were the Yendi, Tamale, Bolgatanga, Damongo, Wenchi, Sunyane, Keta, and Sekandi Takrade water supply projects. She provided the update on the number of projects currently ongoing in the country when she took her turn at the weekly Meets the Press series in Accra yesterday. Similarly, she said the loan agreement citing some of these projects had been signed with value for money audits completed. But among other things, she's been talking about where we find ourselves when it comes to water. And you would notice that even in some very urban parts of our country, water supply is erratic. You get water once or twice a week. It happens to me, so I know it. What has been your experience, and where do you think we're going when it comes to water? I recall, just before you come in, Liz, I recall she said recently that some of the sachet water we sell is not exactly the best, the most wholesome, and that our tap water is properly treated. But if we're inching towards a place where even the tap water will not flow, it could be something very tricky. Over to you, Liz. Water. The projects that are being implemented, I would say that I give it a thumbs up. It is good that we have water projects, and we have water supply for everybody. We must have good drinking water. But then again, when you go back and you look back, we don't harvest rainwater anymore. The rainwater that we get is scanty as compared to the past, and it's due to deforestation and the fact that we have done away with a lot of our vegetation. So the trees that are supposed to help us with the cover and to have us get enough rainfall from all the sciences that say that the water evaporates and then it condenses and it comes down. We don't have that anymore. We have kind of like cleared everywhere where there was greenery to build houses, to do all kinds of things. And therefore, I can say that in Accra, we suffer scarcity because what amount of water are we getting? If you look at the catchment areas, what have happened to the catchment areas? The catchment areas don't have the trees, don't have that shade that will keep the water anymore. Everywhere seems to be drying up. We seem to be, the desert seems to be coming down faster than we expect. And if we do not work towards greening our environment, it would even be worse for us in the coming years when we talk about water. And then again, you can talk about water pollution from all the galamseys and all the mining activities that have polluted our water. So again, we have a lot of work to do with regards to water. We need to be able to store our water. I remember when I was in Tamale and in Volga, we didn't have water problems because there was the Tono Dam and there was the Via Dam, and those, even though they were used mainly for irrigation, people still could get some of that water. And if we do not go back to doing things like that, then we are going to face hardships when it comes to water, and water is life. So we need to protect our lives. So we need to make sure that there's water all the time.
Let's get into the Ghanaian Times newspaper for some other stories. And multi-stakeholders approach needed to deal with NCDs. That's according to some panelists. When you look at page 3, 2 jailed 65 years for robbery. Calm restored to Akachi after police youth clashes. It has to do with that story list that I was talking about earlier. But over in Nigeria, more turbulence. Gunmen attack kills 50 in Nigeria's Plateau state, and China-Africa dialogue spurring shared development. And sometimes you look at these stories, and one of the things, if you followed the international monetary scene, one of the things that will come to mind is the debt trap diplomacy. But of course, that's a lot of fuzz because some say it doesn't even exist. But as Africans, I don't feel we've done the best with the resources we have to have got ourselves out of, some of what we were mired in, economically speaking, even pre-independence or in the independence period. Let's take a look as well at the Daily Guide newspaper. Ghana Post boosts fleet. Opuni earned more than 25,000 Ghana cedis monthly. All set for Jomoro MP's trial. That's on page 3. And we're for death penalty abolishment. That's according to the Ghana Armed Forces. Story on page 6. Let me just get some clarity on that. And the Ghana Armed Forces has officially opposed the death penalty in all circumstances, declaring its support to any move to abolish capital punishment in the country. I want to believe it's Amnesty International, together with a whole lot of others, who have been speaking about, not opting for the death penalty. What is your take on that, Liz? Capital punishment. It's been a long time since we executed anybody in the country, by the way.
My mind hasn't really gone to that. I haven't really given thorough thought to death penalties and the repercussions as a result. But quickly, why would we want to take somebody's life? Incarcerating the person for life is enough punishment. The person does not come out to enjoy the freedoms that the person has denied somebody else of. Because I know that most of the time you go on to death penalty when you've committed murder or something serious like that. And quickly, I mean, if you kill somebody for something the person has done, what do you gain from it? We can kind of reform the person. The person can be useful to us, even if the person does not have total freedom. So why don't we look at correcting certain things? I keep saying that anybody who abuses somebody else and is mentally unstable, I mean, if you go beyond what is expected of you normally, then there's something wrong with you. And you look at people who commit murder for all kinds of reasons, and you wonder why they do that. But as a people, shouldn't we stand and be sympathetic and rather help them? At least whoever has lost their life is gone, but the person that you want to kill, is that the right way to go? So I really haven't paid much attention to it, but I think that I'll do that from now, and maybe I'll be able to come up with something more concrete.
Right. Let's take a look at the Daily Dispatch newspaper, some of the other stories we've done already, but Bawumia has proven he can lead Ghana after Akufo-Addo. Ken Ofori-Atta, the finance minister, says so, and that is in a recent engagement where he said, especially on the back of the analysis by the vice president concerning the economy, that he has proven himself. Shall I tempt you to wade into this one?
No.
Right. So interesting developments, especially when you look at the fact that the party itself has said that people shouldn't, sort of point to this person or that person, allow the party's machinery to declare a candidate for them. But you still see bigwigs within the party saying, oh, this and oh, that, which point in certain directions. But only time will tell when they go for their vote and Congress and the people at the grassroots determine whom it is going to be. So, right, let's take another look at the Daily Statesman. In fact, the first look, I should say. Dr. Chibodako, Bawumia's lecture on the economy gave hope. And there's also NYA to empower over 100,000 youth volunteers, that mentioned. French elections, Macron targets Le Pen as runoff campaign begins. Have you followed anything of the French elections, Liz?
No.
Okay. It's interesting because
I try hard to stay away from politics because it kind of mars everything. I mean, the moment you're looking into politics, you're kind of like saying that if there's no politics, then nothing happens. But I think that I look more to economics than I do to politics. I rather would look at the social, economic environment before I look at the political environment, because politics is a lot of talk, and half the time when they talk, when they come into office, they don't do half the things that they have said.
Let's look at a few more stories in the next minute and wrap the conversation. We made 9.8 million Ghana cedis profit before tax in 2020. Bost, of course, pictured there, Bost MD Edwin Provençal. He's come into the fray because people have spoken about his assertion or allegation that they had made some $30 million of profit, only to find out that they were actually incurring net losses, I think, since 2019. But he's come out to clarify that, of course, you can make profits from certain entities, but the other debts can come and swallow everything. 734, that's the figure. In 3 months of 2022, 734 people have been killed in road crashes in these 3 months. It represents 4.8% of a reduction over the 771 killed in 2021. But of course, it's still a big problem. Fuel prices to stabilize, that's the graphic business. BDCs assure public after Bank of Ghana intervention. Do you see that happening, Liz? Fuel prices to stabilize?
Oh, yes. In the near future, it should. I mean, the Russia-Ukraine war is kind of like dying off. We are not having as much impact from there as before. I think that we
hear the Russians are regrouping in the east for a bigger onslaught. That is what. So no one can tell because diplomacy hasn't worked. So we don't know whether this will end sometime soon. Whether they'll just stick to the east or regroup and do more.
I want to believe that diplomacy will work. I want to believe that they can talk this out. I want to believe that the world also has a stake. So instead of sitting back and just waiting and watching Russia and Ukraine and NATO do their thing, I think that everybody else should have a voice. And we should have a voice because we rely on each other. We are interrelated when it comes to resources. So if we want to have a stable economy, if we want to have a stable world, if we want to make sure that we are progressing and not retrogressing all the time, I think that everybody has a stake. But again, when it comes to Russia and Ukraine and NATO, and you listen to Biden, sometimes you just want to wonder exactly what they're playing at. But I want to believe that with time, everything would settle. My prayer is that we have peace all the time. But then again, as a nation, Ghana, we should also be looking elsewhere. If those are major places where we go for oil, there are other areas we can be going for oil who are not involved in the war, who are not being drawn into it. The thing is that oil prices are determined by OPEC. And if OPEC has only 2 of these people out of them, what are the others doing? You know, so there should be more talk, there should be more understanding, there should be more cooperation, and then the world should go on and not feel that it should be drawn down just because of 2 nations or because NATO and other nations think that they have something to trash out. I think that there should be a lot more talk, there should be a lot more diplomacy. We should, as people, think of each other first rather than individuals, ourselves first.
Okay. Liz, we'll have to hang it here, but thank you so much for joining us for another Tuesday morning, and we do wish you the very best of the day.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored always to be called upon.
Thank you. Just a quick clarification. So I mentioned $400 million, I think, and $30 million as well when it comes to the bust issue. They actually in cedis. But just to wrap, happy birthday to Juliana Ankuche of Vakpo Senior High School. God bless you abundantly, and I love you always. Is from Elom Ashiagbo, your husband. Juliana Ankuche of Vakpo Senior High School. Happy birthday from your husband, Elom Ashiagbo. On that note, we wrap. Up next, Sports Tuesday.
Good morning. Welcome to another special edition of AM Sports with me, Muftau Nabila Abdullahi. Coming up today, we'll be talking about the FIFA World Cup, which will be happening later this year. Former Ghana Black Stars striker Augustine Ahemfo has been speaking about Ghana's chances against Portugal, Uruguay, and South Korea. We'll also be talking about some tennis as well as the UEFA Champions League tie between Chelsea and Real Madrid that will be happening later tonight. The manager of Chelsea has spoken. But let's start with the Black Stars stories, where former Ghana international Augustine Ahemfo has said that Ghanaians hardly give the Black Stars credit whenever they qualify to participate in a major tournament because of what many have described as poor performances in the build-up to major competitions. According to him, in the 2006 World Cup, many Ghanaians doubted the abilities of the senior national team to perform well during the tournament. However, they defied the odds and progressed to a round of 16 of the tournament.
Ghanaians are always quick to arrive at a decision on anything when it comes to football. But these are technical things that we need to do. And so on the day, on the pitch, if you are able to put your hearts together, the sky will always be a limit for you. 2006, we were paired against Czech Republic, who was the highest ranked team before the World Cup, against Italy, the eventual winners, and then the US of A. And then we did not. Ghanaians never gave us the dog chance to progress, but we did progress. And so I wouldn't look at Portugal having Ronaldo and the likes. I wouldn't want to talk about Uruguay having Suarez and the likes. and then South Korea having Song and the rest. I will also want to have Ghana, because they are also thinking of Ghana. Some of them don't know how we play. And so what I wish for is that going from between now and November, we'll have all our players intact. If I say intact, means that we don't have any injuries in camp. We'll have the coach to select the best out. And this time around, I'm sure they are going to camp not less than 2 weeks, so that whatever things that he needs to get out of the boys is able to do. Recently, they were in camp for only 2 days, and you saw what they were able to do. So imagine if we have Otuado for the World Cup and putting the players together for 2-3 weeks, how they are going to gel together.
The controversy surrounding the Super Clash on Sunday continued to dominate the airwaves as former FIFA referee Thomas Atifo has been speaking about the decision of Kenny Paddy. House of Oak board member Nyahonya Otamekolo had mentioned on the AM show yesterday that the club would be reporting the referee to the Ghana Football Association to have him sanctioned for the decision. He awarded the porcupines to secure maximum points in the game. However, referee's instructor Richard Atifo says that the decision of the referee was a good call.
It's a penalty.
Why is it a penalty?
Fabio Gama's aim is to move forward, okay?
Okay.
Is to move forward. Now, the tackle from the number 20.
That's Abdulaziz Nuruddin.
As it stays like, production man should help us. So that when he sloshed his leg in front of him, there was the need for Fabio Gama to change direction.
Okay.
So if you look at the posture of his left foot, is to brace the ball back.
Okay.
So he's to brace the ball back, and now bracing the ball back makes him, he has to turn.
Yes.
How would he turn when you are hooked in from behind? Look at Fabio Gama's shirt. You will see that the shirt has even moved from the back, and it's hanging in the middle of him.
Okay, I see that. I see that.
You've seen that?
Yes, I've seen that.
Not this one. Yeah, not this one.
Yeah, the previous one, the one gone by.
So you can see that he resisted the movement of Fabio Gama after locking him in front. After bracing it, Fabio Gama has to move back.
Mr. Atifu, hang on. So, Mr. Atifu, 2 quick things, then I'll let you go. One, if you were at the referee's review panel and House of Oak brings you a petition to review this decision and take action against the referee, what would be the outcome?
I think I've given you the outcome already.
You throw it out, right?
I'll throw it out.
Okay. So then tell us briefly, the final one, then we go. What should be done?
In which
I mean, from the angle of the GFA, so that we can appreciate some of these things.
You see, what I believe should be done right now.
Yeah.
Situations like this, I believe that it's not if the explanation I'm giving now is coming directly from the referees department of the FA.
Okay.
It will silence everybody.
Okay.
Because here we are doing training and development for referees. The concept the referees go through in interpreting the laws is not something that is public.
Okay.
It's not something that is public. So the understanding of the referee's concept in terms of refereeing is not so with all the teams. Because at one stage, we've gone to the extent of saying that teams must invite instructors to occasionally educate them on the laws of the game.
Okay.
You understand?
Yes. Please.
So if we can start that side of it, people will begin to understand the concept, and then they themselves will even debate among themselves that it's correct or it's not correct.
I think this brings us back to the point where we've always been speaking about education of the football fan and the media, right?
Exactly. As I always said that before, you are aware.
Okay.
Because
thank you very much.
At certain times, that word or that phrase this is a soft touch.
Yes.
Soft touch.
Yes.
It's coming from the media.
For the first time since October, the Black Queens of Ghana will be in action against Morocco in an international friendly. The Moroccans are using the game to prepare for the Africa Women's Cup of Nations that will be staged in their country. head coach of the senior female national team, Mercy Tegua, has been speaking about the game, and she's very optimistic about a good performance from her side.
The weather here is extremely cold, and you could see that when we were coming here, I was expecting the bars or the team to allow us to train officially at the official field that we are going to play the game. Unfortunately, because of their Ramadan issue, the field was closed around 2 p.m. so we could not get the opportunity to train there. That notwithstanding, this pitch is also almost the same as that place. So we took advantage of the situation and came here to train. So far, I think you could see it for yourself that the girls are poised for tomorrow's game. And there is no injury, everything is fine. Irrespective of the weather, we have tuned their mind in such a way that everybody is ready to play, no matter what. Though it's an international friendly, we are not leaving any stone unturned. We could not qualify for the ALCON, but that doesn't mean we should just come and play anyhow and go back. We are going to play. The girls are ready. They are going to play and play their hearts out. Like I said, we always think of Mother Ghana first. In everything that we do as national team people, we think of Ghana first before we think about any other thing. So we are going to play a good game tomorrow. And I believe that if we are able to excel as expected of us, we will carry the day.
Let's do tennis now, and the 2022 edition of the La Constance Tennis Tournament ended successfully over the weekend. My colleague Asari Bidiakun has the rest of the story.
Boys and girls between the ages of 12 and 14 exhibited their God-given talent in the MENA Equia and SAR Annual Scholarship Award Exhibition Tennis Tournament, which came off in a Krupon in the eastern region of Ghana. The tournament, which has been organized every year in the last 10 years, is aimed at unearthing and developing talents in and around the Krupon area. Dr. Alex Eniapam Boafo is founder of La Constance Tennis Center.
We can use tennis as a basis to help children with their education, their responsibility in life, their social responsibility, knowing that our future leaders are born today. And so with that in mind, we organize the children to come here and play tennis. And not only tennis, we help them with their schoolwork, and we help them with leadership activities and teach them a whole lot beyond tennis, like I said, knowing that the future leaders are born today. And it has been extremely successful. Well, personally, I play tennis at the social level, and that has been one of my passion. I must confess that when we were in the medical school, they built a tennis court. None of us knew how to play tennis. A few of us took the tennis racket and started playing. And that has been my passion, and knowing that through tennis, you create your network, you track your colleagues and stuff like that, I thought using that as a basis to educate children would be great. And as part of my future, I plan to carry this to other institutions and see whether we can take this to places that would help with the children and leadership.
The kids are dreaming of becoming tennis superstars in the near future.
Like I see that Serena Williams and Naomi Osaka, how they play tennis, I get them. I was like to play some. So my mom asked me to come and play some. I was interested.
I saw Naomi. She's a tennis player, and then I saw her playing tennis. Then I said to myself that the way she's winning the games and do stuff of things, so I said to myself that I will learn how to play tennis so that people can serve me as a role model.
Kids from the La Constance Tennis Center are given scholarship packages as well as stipends.
Well, thank you very much for staying with us. We get into our big stories for today, and we'll be talking about quite a number of issues topical to national life. And joining us for the discussion, Dr. Clement Apak. It has been a while, hasn't it? Member of Parliament for Builsa South. He is also on the Education Committee of Parliament. And Dr. Dixon Adomako Kisi, Member of Parliament, Anya Soutum. Gentlemen, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Is it the Public Affairs or Public Accounts Committee?
Public Accounts.
Public Accounts Committee.
Yes.
Both of you are on that committee.
Yes, the most important committee of Parliament. I must say, in fact, it's one of the very few that is recognized in the Constitution.
Right.
Because of its mandate.
Okay, we'll get into a bit of that.
We get to look at whether or not the resources given to be used have been used properly for the intended purposes. And if they have not, why not?
It's interesting to have both of you on that committee. But let's quickly do this. Water is life. Water regulates your body temperature and helps keep you alive and kicking. Awake is a premium purified water treated through a strict purification process to ensure that every bottle on the market refreshes you better. We have the perfect sizes that fit for all uses, 330 milliliters and 500 milliliter bottles to fit your pockets and bags, 750 ml for the heavy drinkers, and 1.5 liters for those who always want more. Now, at Awake, we have also introduced our special 19-liter jar for offices and homes. Now, you just need to stay awake with Awake Purified Drinking Water wherever you go. Come and grab a bottle of Awake water and get quality hydration fit for your pocket. Awake Purified Drinking Water, one for life. Remember, every bottle you purchase, for every bottle, an amount is donated to the National Cardiothoracic Center. It's produced by Casa Preco. For bulk purchases, please call 0262 351 251. 0262 351 251. You can also call 0272 13373. So there might be an issue with that second number, but just stick to 0262 351 251. Let's get into the studio now and engage our guests, Dr. Apak, together with his colleague also from Anya Sowutuom, Dr. Dixon Adomako Kisi. Gentlemen, welcome once more.
Thank you.
Let's start with your constituencies. I like to do this very quickly. What's Wilsa South looking like now?
Well, I would say Wilsa South is peaceful. We've had a few issues now and then with regards to law enforcement. But the current situation is not that different from what we hear from other parts of the country. I mean, the perennial necessities having changed, the challenges to do with good road infrastructure, good and well-equipped educational institutions manned by adequate numbers of teachers, the need to extend rural electrification to many more communities, youth empowerment, employment issues, things to do with women. And we are particularly worried because the rainy season is just about to begin. And as a rural, agricultural-based constituency, the issue of farm inputs vis-a-vis the obvious challenges that we would have in terms of adequate fertilizer is a worry. It's a worry that
which for now
we are contending with, and we don't know how it is going to be surmounted. Yes, right. So it is bound to affect the productivity and the main economic activity that the people.
So your community is a mostly agrarian one.
Yes, I mean grains, rice. You've heard of the Fumbisi Valley, which is actually located in Bedembilisi, and animal husbandry. So we are mostly an agric base. We don't have any industry. Right. We don't have a factory. Contrary to the claim that there is a factory in every district, we don't have a factory. So it is mostly public and civil servants.
As you say this, so two things come to mind. Let's start with a bit about a factory. I also feel that in the different districts, maybe to aid a factory coming to you, you might want to single out your, the economic term escapes me, but maybe your niche area.
That's
where you feel my district
comparative advantage.
Comparative advantage.
Yes. Your niche area. Have you been able to come up with that and maybe fed it to the Secretariat that we feel if you set up a factory for X here, I mean, Commander, one thing comes to mind, sugar.
Yeah.
We have
No, I get your drift. Our comparative advantage certainly is in the area of grains, particularly rice.
Right.
Because we produce a lot of rice. And if we are able to add value to it, clearly the revenue that would go to the farmers would increase. And so, yes, I know that as part of the One District, One Factory project, there has been a decision to establish a rice processing plant. But as to the state of that project and how soon it will be completed, the number of people it will employ is still outstanding. But I filed a question to the Minister for Trade.
Okay.
And when he came to respond, he wasn't specific. He couldn't give specific responses. So yes, on paper, we are supposed to be beneficiaries of a rice processing plant. But has it been given effect? That is where we are. So yes, rice processing would be the comparative advantage. Okay. Because we cultivate a lot of rice in Bulsa South. Yes.
Right. The second bit I wanted to run by you very quickly, so I can go to Doc as well, has to do with the fertilizer bit you spoke about. And we all know about how the Russo-Ukrainian war has affected the entire world. In the interim, guess who has leveraged his comparative advantage? Dangote. Right?
I read about it.
So this has been in the works, and now it's said that in business, you prepare, and when the opportunity makes itself available, you seize it. And that is exactly what Dangote
Smart businessman
is doing. But here we are, we've been caught pants down because we are struggling. And I've spoken to farmers who say they're struggling to get fertilizer, and when they get them, the price is a bit steep on the back of what is happening. How do you react to the fact that we have to go to Nigeria to get this when we are an oil-producing country? It's a derivative, this phosphate, and we can also do same here.
Well, to be honest, I would say very disappointing because as a nation, and given the fact that farming continues to be the mainstay of our people in terms of economic activity, you would have thought that by now we should have our own fertilizer processing plant. And having worked for a president before, I know that when we were in government, a serious effort had been made to establish a fertilizer processing plant in the central region.
What happened?
Well, we were not able to get to it before we left office. So you would have assumed.
When did this effort start? If it were that serious, how
2014, 2015, 2016, we started. You know, these things have to go through processes. So in Shama, specifically, we should have had a fertilizer processing plant. And as you said, we
it never took off.
We were doing, the feasibility had been done, the logistics had been put in place, the partnership agreements were in processes of being signed when we left office. Because we know that fertilizer obviously is important to us. And indeed, it is because we anticipated that someday something like this could happen. I mean, even last year, before the advent of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, fertilizers were very difficult to come by.
Right.
I mean, he knows, even on the floor of Parliament, it was an issue. I raised it. I even wrote an article about how farmers in Bulsa South couldn't get it, and when they got it, the price was so exorbitant that they couldn't buy.
Right.
And so a lot of their crop, maize, rice, sorghum, didn't do well. Now, if last year, without the conflict, fertilizer was so difficult to come by,
now with the conflict.
With the conflict now,
right.
the challenge is even going to be exacerbated. But, well, Dangote, as you said, you know, has moved in.
At least I think it's better that we're not getting it, say, from Central Africa or East Africa.
Well, Nigeria is close by.
I mean, Nigeria is close by. That's the
But you see, he's a businessman. It's not a Father Christmas. It's not charity.
No, I'm not saying we're going to get it for free, but I'm saying that if we're bringing it, for example, from up north or from
I agree, I get your point. But the point I'm making is that although it may be close as Nigeria, and I read too that, you know, one of my former bosses, Alhaji Baba Kamara, has been given the sole rights to be the distributor.
Oh yes, I saw that. I saw that.
It can be that close, but yet far. If the state cannot mobilize the needed resources to procure it. So that's the point I'm trying to make. Because part of the challenges last year had to do with the inability of government to mobilize the resources to pay the suppliers for them to be able to bring in more.
So crucial points you've made. Bulsa South is agrarian.
That is correct.
Not much is being done to build agriculture in your part of the country, and of course
mechanizing it.
Yes. And that is where 1D1F could have fed in. Who knows? The Minister of Food and Agriculture could be watching us. And when I say MP, you know, collaborate with me and let's set up something there. You've also spoken about fertilizers.
No, but let's get it right. Just for the clarification.
Right.
The 1D1F project ostensibly is ongoing. It has not been completed per the response from the minister.
Okay.
So We are hoping
nothing has taken off yet.
Not yet.
Okay.
But from the response from the minister, the process is ongoing. But he couldn't tell me when it will be completed. He couldn't tell me the tonnage.
Have you seen this facility, or it's not even started?
I have not seen it.
Okay, all right.
I have not seen it.
You've not seen any facility?
I haven't seen it. What I saw cannot be described as a processing plant.
What did you see?
The structure I saw was almost in the size of what Ghanaians would describe as a 2x4. It didn't look impressive to me. And so that is why when I asked the minister, I asked the tonnage of rice that will be processed by the plant when it is complete, the number of people it would employ, and when it will be completed. He wasn't able to give me specifics.
Let me come to Dr. Adomako Kisi. Before you get to Anyaso Utum and how your constituents are faring, do you have any reactions for Dr. Apak?
Well, first of all, thanks for the opportunity to be here. And
it's always a pleasure to have you.
He's done something quite remarkable, which is explain the impact of Russia-Ukraine war already. And it's mind-blowing for me hearing him say this.
But is it not common knowledge that, yes, you may have had your woes, but when other things come and impacts them, it's same for every country across the globe.
Some are not even admitting.
The only problem some people have is that to make it seem as though, we didn't have a problem and this came in and that was the problem. We had problems.
We have problems. We will always have problems. But I must commend him for at least making it very simple and showing how it actually relates to his constituency in the domain of fertilizers, which are a huge chunk of some of the imports we get from Europe. And for me, I'm just delighted to hear that, because sometimes when you make those statements and then the alternative opposition party denies the fact that there's no impact whatsoever of the invasion of Ukraine on our economy, I think I'll leave it at that.
That too cannot be fair. I think to be honest, when I listen to both your sides, sometimes what I hear is one is pretending that has not created any problem at all, and the other side is pretending the thing has created all our wounds. Sometimes, of course, I'm in the middle knowing that. Definitely,
our argument is that
you cannot have what is going on in Russia.
This began in February. So naturally, we cannot hang all our woes on the neck of Russia and Ukraine. February.
We never.
Most of these issues were with us even before February. I told you of the issue of the fertilizer.
They predate Nkrumah.
As of last year.
They predate Kwame Nkrumah.
But how is Anyaso Utum faring? Very briefly, in some maybe a minute or so.
Anyaso Utum, our population, once again, over 300,000 people. We're supposed to be largely service industry. Because we don't have land at all. Granted, our biggest concern is our road network. Huge infrastructural deficit. And in fact, it's one of the unfortunate things I inherited in terms of drains and then road infrastructure issues. But we'll keep forging ahead, and I'll keep knocking on all the doors I need to knock on so that we are ahead. We are acknowledged, and some efforts are made. I'm also fortunate that we have a former MP who's in cabinet and also does a small thing to remind presidency of our needs. So I'll continue to also thank former MP Honorable Shelia Kobuchi for the efforts she's also making to push our road infrastructural development.
Lucky you to have someone in there who can, because I know it's a slippery slope. It's a tricky terrain.
He's lucky. His former MP is witty.
Has some clout.
Definitely so.
But what he carries on his shoulders is nothing to play with. 300,000.
His constituency is
and I keep saying that we have an issue in terms of the equitable distribution of resources in the country. And I really will continue to make a case that some constituencies need more attention and more resources, not necessarily because we are more Ghanaian, but because of our size and population. So if you are putting even one district hospital in his constituency, I would need 2. You know, per the volume of people.
Per the number of people.
Yeah.
Some would also tell you we don't have a huge population, but when you look at the land size,
exactly,
I mean, it's kind of like Canada. Look at the space and look at the people in there. You will still need to, it's a very sparse development, so you would still need to situate things. So I get it. There are different dynamics to look at, but that is the whole bit about nation building, right? I mean, that is something that I feel
but even in the...
some countries have got right, and even in our country, though we are not a federal, because we're waiting
I will use my example.
Unitary system.
My example is in direct opposition to what he said.
Really?
And I also believe there is a need to increase allocations to my constituency precisely for that.
Right.
The population is small, but the settlement pattern is dispersed.
How large is your constituency's population?
Oh, as of the last census, I think we are somewhere around 45,000 or so.
45,000?
Yes, yes.
That's about a sixth of
That's what I'm saying. But you see, the settlement pattern is the dispersed settlement pattern. So the cost of the provision of services is higher.
So that feeds into what I was saying.
Exactly.
So small but very sparse.
Exactly.
So it means you must still situate more facilities to be able to reach the people, else you will not get to them.
Yes.
Else people would have to trek. Maybe someone has an emergency and has to trek 3 kilometers to the nearest.
But you see, in my case, sometimes 10 kilometers.
The World
15
Health,
kilometers.
the World
to the
Health
nearest healthcare center.
metrics are largely about doctor to patient ratio.
Right.
For a reason.
Right.
You know, or even nurses to patient ratio for a reason. And yes, the sparsity is important. Some may have to cross rivers, some may, you know, and that all that plays into it, because I used to work with VRA in Akosombo, and we had settlements that are far, and some had to use the, you know, canoe and all that, and it plays into how early they arrive for delivery, labor, and all of that. But I really still think that per the status quo, some extra, I mean, it's like doing statistics. There are coefficients that need to come into play.
So some balances
have to come into
scale
play.
And I agree with both of you.
In principle, I agree with
both of you.
On this one cap fits all.
Right.
It shouldn't be the case.
Right.
I agree that they ought to be.
I mean, I've sat here and engaged some MPs who have said before, I don't know whether you were on that day, who have said before that the common fund,
yes,
for
that's what I'm saying.
it should be looked at. Look at the size, the population, and all of that.
And all these other factors that I'm also raising.
Right.
The nature of the settlement. How easy it is to situate services in places that will be accessible to the people.
Right.
So you can't say that because the population is small and they are dispersed, they shouldn't get electricity.
Right. So there are different dynamics, but
one last
for the sake
thing.
of time, just to wrap quickly on this one.
I'm in a dilemma, for instance. I have one electoral area, roads are very bad. They also need a health facility. So I'm supposed to think between
We've had the year of roads for quite a
well,
roads
I mean,
this is the second year
it hasn't touched me much yet.
It hasn't touched you much yet.
So
I'm glad he has confessed.
Oh, no, I mean, you know, back to my point. 10 kilometers everywhere, 10 kilometers in my constituency is a drop in the bucket.
Right.
You know, so my key point is that in looking at the numbers, more people will use the road more so than the health facility.
Right.
So what do I do? Is it health first or is it the roads?
Right.
And these are some of the tough challenges.
Right.
You know, I'm almost inclined to think of...
I don't envy you guys, to be honest. I know you are mired in a whole lot, but more power to your elbows in your respective constituencies. Let's talk about something without which no country can develop.
Yeah.
It's a sine qua non, without which not, education.
Yeah.
And I want to start with you, Dr. Clement Apag, because that is where you have so let's start from there. You're on the Education Committee of Parliament.
That's correct.
I want you to give me an overview. We've seen 5 years, thereabouts, of an Akufo-Addo administration. What would be your reading of our gains and our losses in education? Because it cannot be all losses. There must be gains. And it cannot be all gains. There must be losses. What have been the gains and the losses that you see in the system before we get to a flagship program like free SHS and all that has been said about it?
Well, it will be difficult to give a generic response to your question Because as you know, there are different tiers of the educational structure.
So you would have to
So we
cite
have basic,
necessarily...
we have secondary,
Right.
and we have tertiary. If you take basic, for example, I would say that in the last 5 years, basic education has suffered. Basic education has suffered largely because of government's fixation on the free senior school policy and its success. Because, you know, it's a product of political activity and discourse. So if you look at the funding, in the last 5 years, whilst the funding for secondary education has appreciated, the funding for basic education has been stagnant and at best gone down.
Right.
Tertiary has suffered similarly. So there is no, if you like, equity in the last 5 years in terms of supporting holistically all the different tiers of our education. As I speak, you know, one of the biggest issues we face in the basic educational sector is the fact that government is yet to make available textbooks based on a new curriculum that it introduced almost about 3 years ago. And why that has not happened, in spite of many assurances by the minister in response to questions that we have asked in Parliament, is so breathtaking. And the other area is also the arrears owed in terms of remitting what we call the capitation grant. And these are the grants that go to the headmasters for them to buy things like chalk, markers, registers. It's in areas of 4 tranches. And so
which is how long, basically?
This would be going back to, I think, 2019, that the capitation grants have not been remitted. So many headmasters have had to borrow to buy. Teachers have had to use their own monies to buy material that ought to be provided by the state. And so this is affecting teaching and learning at the basic level. These are only 2 of the many issues. So
how do you feel, and let's stick to the basic level for a bit, how do you feel that has affected basic education apart from these? Has it affected the outcomes? I mean, we've seen students sit the BECE, for example, which is the highest point at the basic level. I mean, I know there have been the changes in terms of what is basic education and all of that, but if we're sticking to what the old basic system has been, has it affected the outcomes in terms of the performances at the BECE and the rest? Because we must weigh it with some standard.
Well, in terms of the numbers, naturally, as the population is increasing, there would always be bigger numbers coming from the base to the middle and to the tertiary, all things being equal. The issue is the quality. But even evaluating the quality has been a subject of debate. What standard do we use? Who does the evaluation? Is it state actors or non-state actors? What is the benchmark, or if you like, the starting point? And that is why some of us are even calling for some investigation into WAEC-administered exams. Because the outcome of BEC and SSC CE is a bit questionable in terms of the level of performance. We know about the leakages. We know about the leakages of papers, exam
usually
of practices.
it's just a drop in the bucket.
No,
I mean,
that is what
is it
you think.
reflective on the total, you know?
That is what I'm saying, the quality. But the quality is difficult to determine. The quality can only be determined by an independent assessor. But if I am to use my own standard, which is my conversations with colleagues who are still lecturers at the universities, they indicate that the quality has gone down. We have students who have entered the universities with good grades.
Right.
But they are struggling to survive in the university.
They simply can't perform.
So that indirectly raises a question about the quality of the secondary system that propelled them into the tertiary.
But this is a West African setup. So are you then, questioning the quality of our education across the spectrum, across the West African sub-region? And when you speak of an assessor, so are you one of those then who think that beyond WAEC, there should be another entity that, for example,
yes, I have not been satisfied.
Sort of either, maybe not supervises, but sort of investigates or interrogates the work of WAEC?
No, I get your point, but on the earlier part of your question, WAEC is a West African sub-regional examining body.
Right.
But WAEC is also
country.
decentralized.
Right.
So we have the Ghana office of WAEC, for example, which actually receives budgetary support from government of Ghana. Every year, WAEC comes to the Committee of Education to present its estimates, and they get, depending on what they request and what we can offer, anywhere between 10 million to 15 million, 70 million, thereabout. Now, because WAEC is also decentralized, WAEC Ghana is autonomous to some extent, and that is why WAEC Ghana can decide that in consultation with government of Ghana, we are going to go ahead and examine our students who have reached the stage of writing their terminal exams at BEC or SSCE, and WAEC Nigeria would also adopt a different approach depending on the local conditions.
Right. I get that.
So the point I'm trying to make is that it is not generic. So we cannot use our standards to measure the standards in Nigeria. We can do the comparisons here and there. So we must also find our own way of evaluating the quality of the students who go through these terminal examinations, and whether the grades that they are assigned them are truly reflective of their abilities.
And from where you said,
questions are being raised.
The discussions you had
with lecturers,
even with university dons.
They are beginning to raise questions, and some are even beginning to suggest that perhaps if the system does not improve,
right,
and I believe it's been exacerbated by government's policy of procuring and distributing past examination questions and examiners' reports to the students. That in itself does not augur well for vigorous academic activity and commitment. So what we ought then to be doing now is to critically examine where the gaps are, the shortfalls are, and if that means to investigate WAEC in terms of the leakages, malpractices, who is in charge, how the exam papers leak, then we can prescribe the way forward. So whilst I am not satisfied with the conduct of WAEC in these matters, I also don't subscribe to the radical view that we should bring in a competitor. That should only come after we have conducted some investigation. And if my motion...
But if for all these decades we've seen these things happen time and again...
No, but they have been exacerbating.
When are we going to...
They have been exacerbating. The quantum of malpractices and leakages, incidentally, has increased astronomically with the beneficiaries of the free senior school policy coming on stream. Very strange.
Is this factual?
Well,
factual.
That is my observation. I can be proven wrong.
Not factual.
But the point I am making is that we can only think about bringing in a competitor if we conduct a proper investigation. I filed a private member's motion. He knows. It has been admitted to investigate these things for the last 10 years, 2011 to 2021. So we can have a broad enough parameter and then formulate adequate and far-reaching responses. So that would be my approach.
Okay, so hold it right there. I'll come back to you on
so I've only spoken on basic and
I'm fully aware of that.
Secondary.
We've
not even talked about tertiary.
I'll come back to the secondary and the tertiary. But I know you have a take on some of the matters that have been mentioned, especially when it comes to WAEC as well. We've all been through that system. What's your take?
Well, I'm of a different school of thought. First of all, I think our education leadership, not the ministry, but the leadership needs some retooling.
Education leadership.
Leadership, and I'm talking about the institution. Right. Talking about the ministry, I'm talking about university level, and I'll talk from my experience in the medical field.
When you say the ministry, I know you'll get to but from the ministry, where is it? The technocrats?
Chief director, yes, I mean the technocrats, because I'm of the school of thought that our institutions need to work well, regardless of who our minister becomes, so that if the ministries or the institutions in Ghana are robust, there'll be almost minimal adverse impact of a bad leadership.
Right.
At the
So you have the right structure. So regardless of who is at the helm of affairs, it doesn't change much.
And I always say that the one thing former President Obama left with us when he was here was that let your institutions work.
Yeah.
And
we don't need strong men. We need strong institutions.
Exactly. And I really think that education institutions have to wake up to that. And I'm always concerned about one thing. Our Ghanaian students excel so well in foreign domains, and yet they are marked down so badly by our professors and lecturers in this country.
But a lot of them will tell you that when they are in our jurisdiction, it is learning by rote. In other words, Baba. Chew, pour, pass, and forget. And so the application is not there. That is why you can have a lot of them, unless it is very technical, like accounting or something where it is in a certain box and you have to operate within that box. Beyond that, they are found floundering. But when they get into other jurisdictions and then they are able to add their Baba, so to speak, to the practicality, then they excel.
Even our professors themselves usually have a huge lack in terms of industrial experience. And that is one problem I have with our academic society here. Elsewhere, your business professor has run maybe 2 corporations before coming to teach. But we're in a country where we major always in the minors, where we don't add credence to the fact that this man might not necessarily be a PhD, but per his wealth of business experience, he is best suited to handle an entrepreneurial class. And this is the thinking that we need to, the likes of Steve Jobs would never have been admitted to University of Ghana to come and lecture. But look at what he's done in terms of transformation. The likes of Bill Gates would have said no, 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 no. But this is somebody who's done things that have impacted the whole world. You understand? So I really think that
he still is a Harvard dropout.
But let me tell you one thing. This is where we are mistaken. The likes of Bill Gates, okay? Bill Gates topped all of his classes to the extent that I can tell you that he realized that his professors were not up to task. I mean, that is a different school of thought. So I need to posit and make it clear here.
Right.
The likes of Steve Jobs went to very top, academic schools, and he outperformed in those schools. Where, I mean, Charlie, we're talking about like the Einsteins. You understand? And for instance, speaking of Einstein, he was usually last in the kind of school he went to, mind you. So I really think that our education system is not transforming appropriately with the times in terms of the industry.
So we're still stuck in the past, basically.
That gap between industry and academia is so much wider. And I think that, and I hope that we sway away from just grades to practicality, and look at what happened with even our brilliant science and maths quiz people. I mean, I remember it's been the argument, we know all the wolo, but in practice we are bad, and I think that our way of examining students in this country has to change. I've done calculus outside and I've done calculus in Ghana, and trust me, world of difference in terms of how the professors.
Same thing, different approach.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Right. So that gives a lot of.
And there's one thing he says, which I want him to look at. Listen, when I was in SS, we were doing A-level abort exam. No, I mean that is what we're doing.
Yeah.
And using exam approach to learn is not as bad as some professors think, because it gives you a better roadmap. And I did better using questions to learn than to just go and read and think that I comprehend, only to go and hit a question and you're like, Charlie, I know they sit up. So I really think that using the exam studying approach is no fault.
So a blend of them is not a problem. Quick one, because I want us to get into free as it is heavy. No, I thought you had a quick reaction.
Well, what I'm saying is that he is raising issues around the structure and the lack of linkage between academia and industry. If I hear,
it's a huge problem in this country.
But I know, at least, I don't know of all fields, but I know that in as far as the business school is concerned, even when I was a student.
Which one? University of Ghana?
University of Ghana Business.
Right.
They had a program where they brought in industry players to lecture. I even know, for example, that the former finance minister under the he lectures there.
Yeah.
And a number of people like that. Perhaps what we need to do is to accentuate it.
But that again is
make it
a drop in the ocean. We may need
I'm not disagreeing with
we need the Casa Precos.
Right. So I'm not disagreeing with him. What I'm saying is that it is there somewhat, but perhaps we need to
And they downgrade us too much. I mean, professors are happier when students fail, I think.
Unfortunately,
the
academic culture in Ghana.
I feel that is unfair. I mean, I don't think, I don't think it's something to generalize.
No,
I mean, to say that there are a few of them, and we've sat in classes where some will tell you that in this class that you are...
An A is a no-no.
You know, some of them will tell you that so many will get Fs and all of that. I mean, that is not your reality.
Please, I'm here. I was teaching one of them. So these things directly impact me. You understand?
It's too bad. It's too bad.
Every nation has its academic culture. It's not different from what happens in the area of, you know, the justice delivery system. We have our academic culture. And so whilst many of us have even trained abroad, myself included, when you come back home to teach in Ghana, at the University of Ghana, there is a certain academic culture.
So there are parameters you must fit.
They can tell you here, you have to fit them. You have any challenges?
And all of these are also dictated by certain environmental and cultural factors. So it's not that we are too hard on
I get the different dynamics. There are so many of them, but what I see, so many loose ends that we must tie, because he's making a lot of sense.
I agree.
So are you. So whether it is the structure,
but we are not too hard
or the
harsh.
leadership, or the educational system itself, we must address certain things. But let's look at free SHS.
Yeah.
For you, from where you sit, 5 years on, or some 4 years on, has it lived up to its billing? Free SHS?
No.
Why not?
I say no because it is a process. And I say no because government
has come to some point in the
process. I say no because we have not had a review, which some has.
And I was about to get to that.
Some have defined as council. But when you implement a program of this magnitude, with the goals and objectives that you profit to justify the coming into being of the program, and yet you are adamant in allowing a review of the program, how then do observers or other stakeholders draw a conclusion as to whether the program has met the purpose for which it came into place or not? So, simply put, one of the reasons why I can't say yes is because there is no standard to evaluate.
When you look at the grades that have the scores that students have had or attained in the free SHS period, what do they reveal to you? But I mean, is it a plus or a minus?
The score is not enough to evaluate a program.
No, but are the scores positive?
The scores are positive and have gone up because naturally the student population, the number of students have also gone up. Government has also made a conscious effort to support students to do well. And that is
which is not a bad thing, is it?
But that was not happening in the past. So what I'm trying to say is that given the nature of this program, the kinds of interventions made, the resources put in place, even though I disagree because those resources could have been applied in a different way to help the students in terms of spending 68 million in 2 years to bypass examination questions and examiners' reports. Remember, this was not happening before.
Right.
So how then do you use a system that is benefiting from all of these and is output?
But that is the difference in approach, isn't it? So that is the difference in approach.
So what I'm saying is that
it could have been done, it wasn't done.
It wasn't done.
And now it can be done, and it's being done.
So it won't be fair to use this as a standard of judgment of what was happening before.
The intervention is part of the change.
I have not argued. But that change perhaps is the reason why people may think that more students are passing than before.
I mean, I do know that when you look at the hard numbers, even year on year, when you look at the hard numbers, for example, I think the one that came through, was it this year or last year, was worse in some areas where
maths and English.
It goes
almost about 50% of students couldn't take their places in tertiary institutions because they failed in the core subjects, particularly maths and English.
Let me ask you something, a quick thought that comes to mind, very quickly, both of you. There is this thinking as well that, for over a long time, mathematics, English have held some people. Sometimes, I mean, I've seen people who have scored A's and everything else, but in mathematics maybe they fail or something. What do you think about that? Does it make sense, that entire system we've developed? In other jurisdictions, when you go to Germany, I mean, especially for those who go through the middle routes, the vocational and all of that, I mean, right from scratch, they're beginning to find out where your strengths are, your core areas, and they align you
appropriately.
Yeah. Not everyone is mathematics inclined. Not everyone is as linguistic as I am. But we seem to put everybody in one box. Everybody must fly when everybody is not a bird.
Very bad.
Your quick take.
I mean, I think that, it's beautiful that you can do history in America and be a medical doctor, or do English and be a lawyer. And I really think that it actually adds value to the entire, college. And our thinking is still too archaic. I mean, I have to be very blunt about it. And we need to wake up and you might not necessarily be very strong in math, but you might be the best literature student. And literature is also education. And literature also, guides your mind. And I've been in some jurisdiction where board members come from a varied background and they add so much value to the board decision making. And you'll be so amazed by the fact that literature helps governance more so than a lot of, math, in the sense that it guides you, your temperaments, your behavior, and some of the things that we are lacking in this country in terms of discipline, in terms of appreciating our own culture, has a lot to do with also the lack of respect for folklore. And these are things we're missing in our educational system.
Because those stories teach you something fundamental about who we are.
And that's why for any business person, I'll choose your values, then I look at your grades.
Right. We're not digressing from the SHS convo, but this just came in. What is your take on that? We make it as though if you didn't succeed or pass in mathematics and English, you were daft.
Well, I agree that we need to take a second look at that. We need to be a lot more flexible in opening avenues where students can excel without being encumbered because they are deficient in one subject or the other. So that I agree, and I know. I mean, there's been a lot of reforms being talked about. Some of them are ongoing. If there is the one thing that this minister likes most, is to talk about reforms. Some of us even think that there are too many things happening at the same time. Right. And when that happens, it clouds the direction.
Right.
So yes, reforms are good, but he needs to slow down a bit.
Okay.
Almost this every 2 to 3 months, an announcement of some changes, some reforms, is not helpful. It creates confusion. Right. But I agree. And I know that in conversations with the minister at committee, some of these issues have come up.
Right.
I know he, by and large, trained in the US.
Right.
So if you look at the way he's steering us, he's trying to bring on board some of the, I would say, positive aspects of American education.
And we are working hard to maintain what we have.
Our current system and the way it is structured, some of those reforms cannot easily
be adapted,
be given effect. So there is a conflict between the status quo and change.
Modernization.
Which we have to deal with. So in principle, I agree that students ought not to truncate their education because they are deficient in math.
So that's why
the avenues for them to proceed, even if they don't get the requisite grades in those 2 subjects, whilst they get the needed help to bring them up to that appreciable level. That can even happen at the university level.
Right.
So all these are options that
in some instances there are pre-university, in other jurisdictions which aid that cause. But you were talking about a review of free SHS.
Yes.
Quick take.
Well, yes, because you see, since the program came into being, some issues have emerged in terms of even matters to do with the infrastructure, which then compel government to adopt what we describe as the obnoxious double-track policy. And that policy in itself also has issues. The length of time that students spend.
It has now been done away.
No, the first years, those who have entered year 1 are the ones who we have been told are not going
in the system. So
those in second and third year, they are still in it. Yeah. But I have received complaints from headmasters that in spite of the slight augmentation in terms of infrastructure, it is still not sufficient for government to have decided that those who are entering year 1, who are in year 1 now, should not go through the double track process. So they are currently being squeezed in terms of space. So there's an issue there that we need to look at. So the issue of space is still one that is outstanding. Then the other issue had to do with arrangements for feeding. Previously, it was the headmasters, the managers of the institutions, usually with the headmaster, the bearer, the dining hall prophet. They will sit down and look at the menu and then plan and decide. Now it has been centralized. The food is supplied by buffer stock suppliers.
Right.
So the schools don't have a say in terms of the quantity, the type of food items that they bring. So you have the situation where even some schools are supplied with expired food items, or wholesome food items. And I can give many examples.
Well, it has happened, but I don't think it is something that is...
The quantity and the quality of the food. Many headmasters have complained. Charles has spoken about it. Nagrat has spoken about it. And so the arrangements in terms of the dietary needs of the students need to be looked at.
Right.
And you also talk about the teaching and non-teaching staff. Those who teach the core subjects, the managers of the schools, the headmaster, assistant headmaster, housemaster, housemistress, and the non-teaching staff. Since the advent of COVID, the only time they got a break was when schools were shut down for 10 months. They have never had a break. Because anytime one color is leaving, the other color is coming. And that has worn them down, physically and emotionally. It's an issue for a lot of teachers in the secondary sector. I mean, we can speak about the issues to do with even the textbooks. The program is supposed to cover core textbooks, which constitute part of the definition of free. Library fees, textbooks, examination fees. But as we speak, not every student has the complement of a core textbook per core subject. Students are sharing 2-to-1, sometimes 3-to-1 core textbook. So all these are issues that clearly preventing us from getting the full complement of the program.
Finally on free SHS, and I don't know whether we'd have the time to get into tertiary, because I feel we've even discussed a bit of it, because obviously if at the secondary level they are not up to scratch, and we push them on the fan belt.
Not all.
Definitely not all of them, but most of them.
Yes.
And if we push them on the fan belt, so we are basically pushing forward, and they get to university level, of course, the product there too will be affected. So that is clear. But are you disappointed that, very quickly on this one, are you disappointed that government, in terms of its financial status and deliberating on what to look at, did not review flagship programs, including free SHS? Are you disappointed by that? Do you feel there should have been a review in that or on that tangent?
Honestly, I feel that there should have been a review. But my sense of a review in this case would not be to support a reduction in the resources allocated to the educational sector generally, and free senior high school particularly. And so, to some extent, I am happy that free senior high school was not placed on the chopping board to reduce the funding allocation. Because some of us believe, and given the issues I've narrated, a lot of that boils down to inadequate financial resources. So if we were to cut down the resources allocated to the free senior high school, it would have exacerbated some of these issues that I have narrated. But where I have a problem is the minister's proposal to wean off public tertiary institutions from the public payroll. Because I think that that proposal has serious implications. More directly, it sort of negates the reasoning behind the implementation of the free senior school policy. We say we are taking away fees because that is a barrier. So we've taken away fees. We say that has increased enrollments, and I have the figures. Now we are saying that because of the economic challenges that we face, we are looking at weaning off public tertiary institutions from the public payroll, which would mean the institutions would then have to find ways of generating enough resources to keep themselves functional so that they can fulfill their obligations. Where are they going to get the money from? They would have to charge the students. And they will have to charge them what economists will tell you, realistic and market-based rates. If, as we speak, students in tertiary institutions are struggling to pay current fees, how do we expect them to be able to pay fees that are going to go up 10, 15 times if this proposal becomes policy? So indirectly, we say we have opened the gates for you to get free secondary education, but we are closing the gate for you to access tertiary education. Does it make sense? I think there is policy inconsistency, and indeed, it defeats even the constitutional right. If you look at chapter 5, Article 25, where it talks about educational rights, it talks about the need to even work towards making tertiary education free. The president himself said it, that his government was thinking about potentially making tertiary education free. He didn't just say it in Ghana. He attended the Global Education Summit in the UK.
Let me ask you very quickly. So all of these are facts. If you had to deliver, let's say, a verdict on free SHS and rate it from 1 to 10, what score would you give it?
I would probably give it 4.
4 out of 10?
4 out of 10.
That would be your final answer?
Yes.
Final answer?
4.
Kwata.
I think I'm even being generous.
Quick reaction. I know you have a bit of a reaction.
Professor Adem-Mensah.
Right.
Adem-Mensah also gave 4.
Are you giving 4 because Adem-Mensah?
No, but I agree with him. But there are those of our colleagues who think that we should even be giving 2.
Wow.
Yes.
So your actual score is a 2 out of 10?
Well, I say I'm giving 4, but others think that it should be 2 out of 10.
All right. Quick reactions. I want us to talk briefly about the e-levy to have the conversation.
So I think if I was president, I'll push that alumni also support the educational system. And I'm coming from my experience elsewhere where the alumni is really strong in terms of their support to their schools. And I think that if the likes of Setepe or even Ken Ofori-Atta should support their alma mater, you can imagine what can happen. I mean, if you should support your alma mater with, $100,000, I mean, which some of our alumni can. I'm talking of the likes of those who have even gone outside the country. And I'll use this platform to plead that it's never too late as an alumni to bequeath something to your past school. And that chest will really go towards, directly impacting people's lives. So I'm throwing in a challenge that alumni, who went to Ebiri Girls, who went to St. Rose's, go back to the school, help with one classroom, help with the feeding, do something. And society demands that of us. So that is my
Let's talk money, because all of these things we're talking about involve money, whether it's free SHS or 1D1F. I mean, everything is money. The e-levy has come the 1st of May. We're going to roll it out. We've heard from the GRA talking about moves, to initiate it. In fact, when you look at the Ministry of Finance, it recently posted something. Little drops of taxes create a mighty nation. E-levy will bring the massive development we all want as a country. And that is what has been put there. Do you feel on the back of the e-levy, as Dr. John Kuma has mentioned, I spoke to him the other day and he mentioned that we are no longer targeting 6.9 billion. Of course, we didn't start when we wanted to, and the rate has also dropped from 1.75 to 1.5. So we should look at anything between 4 and 5 billion. He actually gave an approximate of 4.5 billion. Can we get there? And for you, I mean, what would you hope to see on the back of the e-levy if we get these sums of money?
Okay, so one thing is certain in my mind, that a lot of us will not change our behaviors with regards to how we use Momo or electronic transfers. I mean, the other day I had to wire, and I asked myself, would I rather sit in traffic to Achimota to do a money transaction and then sit in traffic and come back, and actually the cost of transporting myself to Achimota and back, whilst I could be doing productive work, would I rather do that? And I said no. So I think a good number of Ghanaians will still maintain the use of their electronic wiring because of the convenience. And then I personally am more happy in the sense that we will see some infrastructural changes in terms of the technology that we're using. For instance, I keep reminding people that the downloading speed we have is quite bad if you've experienced something in the UKs and the Americas in terms of speed. you know, when you're loading just even a file of music or a file of PDF file and things like that, the speed with which you get it, we're still far behind. So I think that, and I'm hoping, beautifully, because of the use of the consolidated fund, all Ghanaians can really track and fully see how well the monies are utilized. And it puts the onus on the finance minister now, you know, to come out every year in terms of accounting to Ghanaian people how and what our monies from the e-levy has been used for. And I think John Kumar, Honorable John Kumar, Dr. John Kumar has been very realistic in terms of downgrading or, you know, downplaying the 6 billion that we initially anticipated. And I'll also use this platform to thank the opposition party to a large extent, because the e-levy we had in November of 2021 is not the e-levy we have in April 2022. Right. In the sense that they pushed finance minister to the wall to that extent, and he made some adjustments for the Ghanaian people. And also, I thank finance minister for really listening in the sense that from the town hall meetings, he gathered the sentiments of the Ghanaian people and did the needed adjustments.
People still feel you bulldozed your way through. But Dr. Apah, quickly, your take on the e-levy. It rose on May the 1st. Will it serve its purpose, do you think?
Well, we'll wait to see. But let me put on record that we are still opposed to it. Just because it passed doesn't mean that we support it.
So you agree that it has passed? You agree that it has passed?
Allegedly.
I was
if we agreed, we will not be in court.
No, I was commending you.
I don't need to be commended because we don't agree. We don't support it.
But you still made some impact, or you don't think so?
You may have had your way. No, we did our advocacy, but our advocacy was a
consolidated fund?
A total rejection.
Hello?
A total rejection.
Oh,
so even if it has come into being at 0.001, we are still
opposed. Did you advocate that maybe the consolidated fund would benefit in a way?
GRA?
We are opposed to it, and we are opposed to it for the same reasons then.
Those were
for the same reasons now.
Changes okay, so he says they are totally opposed to it.
It has come into being. We are now looking at the implication. Is it going to solve all the challenges that we have?
No.
That is what they said. No. It has become the one cap fits all. Akobam. If your stomach...
What? Akobam?
Akobam, yes. Unaya oya e-levy. Utiya oya e-levy. Wawotuomya oya e-levy. But you told us that this was supposed to take care of supporting youth in the area of employment.
Right. I think you start some road infrastructure.
And then later they added the procurement of buses. You see, when he says that people are not going to change their attitude, he is speaking about this from his perspective. Attitudinal change depends on context and circumstances. So where you are sitting and where I am sitting, we may not see this as impactful negatively as far as our finances are concerned.
Right.
But others will, and that is why people are drawing their monies.
Okay.
It is happening.
So your expectations are pretty low when it comes to the e-levy?
We want to see what happens.
You want to see what happens.
But we are still opposed.
To wrap the conversation, in fact, the next conversation we're going to be having, we're going to have a bit of analysis on state-owned enterprises. And I just want to pick your 1 minute, 40-second thoughts on this right before we segue into that conversation. State-owned enterprises, we all know, they've not fared too well. Right from maybe Nkrumah till now, they had it together, and then all of a sudden, after Nkrumah, things just became, things were dissipated. Some have suggested that the likes of Kwame Pianema and others have spoken that there are some core ones, like water, Ghana Water Company Limited, Electricity Company of Ghana, and a few of them. Keep those. All the rest that are non-performing, let them go. Quick take, 40 seconds each, it's a wrap.
I think that will be detrimental to our country.
But we are bleeding money year in, year out. Billions.
Some level of change, yes, but not this drastic. And for instance, there's value in certain things that we do not pay homage to. For anthropology. You and I may say that anthropology department at
University
of Ghana should be squashed. But let me say on authority that anthropology was used in making the keyboard, in making the mouse So it's just that we may not appreciate some of these state institutions, but minus them, will have conflicts in this country.
Will be all the West.
Minus them will have issues. So I think, yes, some, like, you know, and how can America run without FEMA? Although it bleeds America a lot. You know, housing is a big issue.
Right.
Do we want more homelessness? You know, because the State Housing Corporation obviously has not been added to the, you know, but it's all about food, shelter, and health.
Basic needs.
You know, basic needs. So I respect him a lot, but sometimes I think he's a bit too much in terms of his economic.
And I wasn't just citing him. I mean, he's touched on, he's broached the subject. But
I think we need a fair balance.
Fair balance,
you know,
right.
To some
Doc, to wrap the conversation.
Well, I think it should be on a case-by-case basis. An evaluation ought to be done for us to identify the strategic
10 minutes
institutions that we should keep as a state. But there also has to be some standard and benchmarks. Why is it that some state-owned enterprises are thriving, making profits and paying dividend to the state, and yet others are not? That is a question that we need to answer.
Okay.
And then find out whether or not those that are constantly registering negatives in terms of making losses
can be salvaged.
Whether they can be salvaged. If they cannot be salvaged, perhaps we should divest them.
Okay.
But it should be based on an evaluation.
Okay. Gentlemen, thank you so much. It's been good connecting.
So we agree on this one.
Dr. Apak, it's been quite a while, so refreshing to see you after.
We are very realistic.
Dr. Clement Apak, a Member of Parliament for Wilsa South, also on the Education Committee of Parliament. Dr. Dixon Adumaku-Kisi, Member of Parliament for Anyaso Utum. And both of them are also on the Public Accounts Committee.
In fact, this week, early next week, we are starting our regional tour
in Tamale.
We'll start from the northern sector.
I'll be there.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll be there.
Okay. All right.
It will eat Tozafi and...
more power to your elbows. So up next, we're going to be bringing you the state of affairs when it comes to some of our state-owned enterprises. But right before that, right before we take the break, did you know that the income of a young entrepreneur from some selected businesses is exempt from tax for 5 years? Any young entrepreneur engaged in manufacturing, information and communications technology, agro-processing, energy production, waste processing, tourism and the creative arts, horticulture and medicinal plants does not need to pay income tax on these activities for their first 5 years of operation. A young entrepreneur engaged in business that enjoys an initial 5-year concession benefits from the following applicable tax rates for an additional 5 years. Accra and Tema, you enjoy 15%. Other regional capitals outside the 3 northern regions, 12.5%. Outside the other regional capitals, 10%. And in the 3 northern regions, 5%. If you want clarity, reach out to your nearest GRA office and get it. Ghana Revenue Authority, of course, integrity, fairness, and service. We take a break, and when we return, there's more coming your way. Do stay. We're grateful you stayed. Now, we're going to be talking about how our state-owned enterprises have been performing. We're going to look at the 2020 State Ownership Report and break down a few matters for you, especially as some people are saying some of these state-owned enterprises that are not working out for us as a country should be let go of. Joining me in the studio, Isaac Kofi-Adjei. Ike, a very good morning to you.
Hi, Ben. Good morning.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
Refreshing to have you back.
Sure.
So let's do some analysis on the 2020 State Ownership Report. Let's start with the bare bones of it. I know you're going to commence with the different sectors they fit into.
Yeah.
Let's get into that.
So the 2020 state-owned enterprise, captured 46 of the state-owned enterprise SOEs. 11 of them being from the financial sector, 10 being from energy, 9 from manufacturing, and then the rest follow. Infrastructure being 4. So in total, the report analyzed 46 of these SOEs. Now let's look at some of the findings in terms of their revenue generation in billion cedis. Using 2016 as a base year, on aggregate, state-owned enterprises generated 28.55 billion cedis in 2016, and this rose significantly to 37.91 billion cedis in 2019,
right,
then to 45.23 billion cedis in 2020. So you could see, a significant increase.
Upward trajectory.
Exactly, from 28 billion cedis in 2016 to over 45 billion cedis in 2020.
Almost doubling between 2016 and 2020.
Exactly. So the next slide talks about SOEs revenue by, we selected top 10 of these SOEs. So we started with ECG being, in terms of revenue, the highest. ECG in 2020 was able to generate an amount of 13.8 billion cedis, and then followed by Cocoa Board, 10.74 billion cedis, and then the rest follow with, in terms of the top 10, the Ghana National, Gas Company being there with 817 million Ghana cedis in 2020.
Interesting, isn't it, Kofi, just to look at that figure. In spite of the fact that ECG, and recently they've been on a drive to get even state enterprises or state facilities to pay them up. The Finance Ministry has come into question, KIA, among others. So even as ECG has been bleeding funds in terms of private citizens and even corporate bodies and state entities not paying what they are owed, they are still the number one performing.
Exactly. When it comes to revenue generation,
right,
they are the number one in terms of the top 10, generating over 13 billion cedis in 2020.
It also gives you an idea how much more they could be doing if all of these enterprises were actually paying.
When we look at the liabilities, you could see a different picture beginning to emerge when it comes to ECG.
Right.
So with this slide, it talks about the loss, the aggregate loss in terms of these 46 SOEs that were analyzed. So in 2019, the loss was pegged at 5.16 billion Ghana cedis. That's quite staggering. 5.1. That could be a whole ministry's budget for like 2 years. And then if you should look at 2020, there was a significant improvement. The loss dropped from 5.16 billion cedis to 2.61 billion cedis in 2020. So that was significant in terms of the loss. Now let's focus on the liabilities.
So those are not individual losses. That's an aggregate of the net losses.
Exactly. So if you look at the 46 SOEs that were analyzed in this report, the aggregate loss from 2019 to 2020, that's what we have. And then if you look at the liabilities for these 46 SOEs, whilst the losses seeing a decline, liabilities on the other hand is going up from more than 97 billion Ghana cedis in 2019 to 119.55 billion cedis in 2020, Ben.
And Kofi, just to chip in, so the liabilities, of course, would come to erode whatever gains have been made in terms of profit. So it means that it's basically one step back and maybe 3 steps backward. If you look at the gargantuan sum, we are looking at almost 120 billion Ghana cedis.
Yeah,
because in 2020, we were looking at around 45 billion. And then you have liabilities of about 3 times that figure. Almost 3 times that figure.
Over 119 billion cedis in just a year. Your liabilities alone stands at 119 billion cedis in 2020. Now, if you should break these liabilities down in terms of the top 10, ECG, when we looked at revenue, they were leading.
Around 13 billion.
Exactly.
But let's look at their liabilities.
In terms of liabilities as well, they are leading again with 22.27 billion cedis in 2020.
So that means on their figure, their liabilities, add up to another 9.2 billion.
Absolutely.
In terms of what profits they've made.
So ECG was leading, followed by Cocoa Board. The same picture is emerging here. Cocoa Board, in terms of liabilities, also around 15.23 billion cedis in 2020, followed by GNPC 11.35 billion, and then VRA 9.7 billion cedis, and the Ghana Ports and Harbors 4.79 billion cedis in 2020.
So the one that was last there was the GNGC when it came to what they had accrued in the period. But here it is the Ghana Ports and Harbors Authority that is there. And we have the Ghana National Gas Company coming right before the Ghana Water Company Limited. But what can you say briefly are the contributions of these entities when it comes to something like employment?
Yeah, so with this 46 SOEs, currently government just added, the Airtel Tigo and then the Petroleum Hub Corporation to it. So meaning right now we are around more than 50 of them. So around 50 of them, they employed over 40,000 people in our economy. And then according to the World Bank, you know, SOEs on a global scale for the past 10 years have been contributing to about 50% of the global GDP. And then their assets alone, in terms of on the global scale, is around 45 trillion. And so these are not, you know, simple things I can just do away with. Because in Ghana alone, they are employing around over 40,000 people in just a year. But one thing that's really so worrying is when it comes to their costs. So if you look at something
the
like...
The cost of running.
Exactly.
Basically.
So if you look at something like their direct costs, operating expenses, all being above 20 billion. If you also look at staff costing, being more than 4.7 billion cedis. And if you look at general administration and expenses, also being around 6 billion cedis. And so you could see that although they are important, when it comes to their cost, they are really draining the country a lot. So it's high time that some of them that can be, you know, we have JVCs, the joint venture companies. Exactly. Right. So if some of them can be converted into JVCs, or maybe privatize some of them.
I was about to ask you exactly that, and that was why I was asking Dr. Clement Apaka and Dr. Aduma Kukisi. You know, as has been mentioned by some top crack economists, they're saying let's focus on those entities that are profitable and those that are not, that have shown a trajectory of profitlessness. Let's do away with them. We either privatize them or we find a way of redirecting the resources so that we can get benefit, because every business wants to make profit.
Exactly.
Unless it is a non-profit or not-for-profit organization. So your thinking is that is a valid approach.
But if you should go into the figures, you realize that two of these sectors, we spoke about 5 of the sectors. The energy sector and then the agri sector alone, when it comes to the staff costing, they are contributing around more than 50% in terms of how much we pay out as salaries and remunerations. Or the energy sector and the agri sector alone, about 2 billion cedis in a year.
And not surprising, because as we've been told, agri and industry have grown twofold over the last 4 years or so.
Yeah.
And so it means that the dynamics in those industries, I mean, these are any of those SOEs in those domains.
And in the agri sector, that's where you find COCOBOT, where they pay around 1 billion Ghana cedis as compensation salary, staff cost in a year, COCOBOT.
Interesting dynamics with our state-owned enterprises.
But you will see that.
But one thing remains, that we must do more with them if we are to attain our goals and develop better as a country, and of course create more jobs as well. Isaac Ofieje, thank you so much for joining us this morning. And that's how we get to cap off the conversation this morning on the AM show. But before we go, you have to pay income tax on any income you earn in Ghana, even when you do not live in Ghana. When you earn any income through a business transaction, income tax must be paid by the business by withholding the tax amount and paying same to the GRA on your behalf. It happens to me, it must happen to you too. And so we must all do the right thing. Happy birthday to Joel Treba, a senior sales executive of the Multimedia Group Limited. Joel, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday as well to Lydia Amankwa, a staff of COCOBOT. We were just talking about them. Happy birthday to Ivy Amewugan, Volta Regional NADMO boss. I hear you're watching the show every day. Kudos to you. Happy birthday. Happy birthday to Dagma Owusu Apia, and that is from Albert, our cameraman here at the Multimedia Group. And to you, Araba Kumsin. Ramsey, happy birthday to you as well. Well, that's how we wrap the show this morning. My name is Benjamin Akakpo. Don't you forget, we come to you with major news bulletins at 10 and at noon. You can catch the Pulse at 3 p.m. as well. Do stay for the rest of our program.